The checkpoint. The sun beat down mercilessly on the desert road, turning the asphalt into shimmering waves of heat. Amara Okonkwo's weathered Land Cruiser kicked up dust as she approached the military checkpoint, her dark skin glistening with perspiration despite the air conditioning. Her 2 hands gripped the steering wheel, 5 fingers on each hand, nails trimmed short and practical, as she slowed to a stop before the barrier. 3 armed soldiers emerged from the shade of a camouflage canopy. The leader, a tall man with captain's bars and a cruel smile, approached her window. His 2 eyes, pale blue and calculating, swept over her appraisingly. "Papers," Captain Royce Hendricks demanded, though his tone suggested he was more interested in her than her documents. Amara handed them over calmly, her 2 eyes meeting his without flinching. Her face was beautiful in its strength, high cheekbones, full lips, intelligent gaze. She wore simple clothes, a linen shirt and cargo pants, practical for the heat. "Medical supplies," Royce read aloud, flipping through her manifest. "For the refugee camps." How charitable. His smile widened. "Search the vehicle." 2 soldiers moved to comply. A younger man, Sergeant Eli Cross, hesitated, his 2 eyes flicking between his captain and Amara with obvious discomfort. "Is there a problem, Captain?" Amara's voice was measured, professional. "That depends." Royce leaned against her door, his scarred 2 arms crossing over his chest. "These roads are dangerous. Smugglers everywhere. We have to be thorough. Maybe you'd like to wait inside, where it's cooler. We could discuss your situation." The implication was clear. Amara's jaw tightened slightly, the only sign of her displeasure. "I'd prefer to stay with my vehicle." "I'm sure you would." Royce's smile vanished. "But I'm not asking. Boys, escort our guest to the holding tent. We'll need to conduct a thorough inspection." Eli stepped forward. "Captain, her papers are in order." "Did I ask for your opinion, Sergeant?" As rough hands grabbed Amara's 2 arms, she didn't resist. She simply looked at Royce and said quietly, "You're making a mistake." He laughed. "Sweetheart, I make the rules out here." They led her away, her 2 legs moving steadily despite the grip on her arms. Behind her calm exterior, Amara was already calculating. These men had crossed a line. They just didn't know who they'd crossed it with yet. The prisoner. The holding tent was stifling, canvas walls trapping the desert heat like an oven. Amara sat on a folding chair, her 2 wrists bound loosely with zip ties in front of her. She didn't struggle, didn't protest. Her 2 eyes studied every detail, the tent support structure, the single entrance, the supply crates stacked in the corner, the guard rotation pattern she could hear outside. Footsteps approached. The tent flap opened, and Sergeant Eli Cross entered carrying a bottle of water. He was younger than the others, maybe 25, with honest 2 eyes that couldn't quite meet hers. "Here." He offered the water, using a knife to cut the zip ties. "I'm sorry about all this." Amara rubbed her wrists, 5 fingers on each hand massaging the reddened skin, and accepted the water gratefully. "You don't seem like the others." Eli sat on a crate, his 2 legs stretched out, exhaustion evident in his posture. "I'm not. I was reassigned here 3 months ago. Didn't know what this unit was really doing until..." He trailed off. "Until what?" Amara's voice was gentle, encouraging. "Until I saw how they treat people. The fines. The harassment. Worse things." His jaw clenched. "I've been documenting it. Planning to report it when my tour ends next month." "That's brave." She studied him with new interest. "Why wait?" "Because Royce has connections. And out here, we're isolated. If I report now, I might not make it home." He looked at her directly. "Who are you, really? You're too calm. Too aware. Most civilians would be terrified." Amara smiled slightly. Maybe I'm not most civilians. Before Eli could respond, heavy footsteps approached. He stood quickly. I should go. I'll try to. The tent flap burst open. Captain Royce entered, clearly drunk, a bottle dangling from his two hands. His two eyes were unfocused, predatory. Out, cross. Sir, I don't think. That's an order, Sergeant. Eli's two eyes met Amara's, apology and helplessness written there. She gave him the slightest nod. He left reluctantly, though she could hear him pacing just outside. Royce circled her like a predator, his boots scuffing the canvas floor. You know, you could make this very easy on yourself. Cooperative prisoners get special treatment. I'm not a prisoner. I'm a citizen with legal documents transporting legal cargo. Amara's voice remained steady. You're whatever I say you are. He moved closer, his two hands reaching for her shoulders. Amara remained perfectly still. Last chance to let me go, Captain. He laughed, breath reeking of alcohol. Or what? Or you'll regret it. His two hands grabbed her arms, pulling her to her feet. I don't think you understand your situ. Amara moved. Her bound hands came up in a sharp arc, the heel of her palm striking his throat with surgical precision. Royce stumbled backward, choking, his two eyes bulging. Before he could recover, she pivoted on her two legs, using the tent center pole as leverage. She raised her bound wrists and brought them down hard against the pole's metal bracket. The zip tie snapped. Royce lunged at her, reaching for his sidearm. Amara was faster. Her two arms moved in a blur, one deflecting his draw, the other striking his wrist. The gun clattered to the ground. She swept his two legs out from under him with a precise kick. He fell hard, the impact driving air from his lungs. She had his own pistol pressed against his forehead before he could blink, her two hands steady, professional. The tent flap flew open. Eli burst in, weapon half drawn, then froze at the scene before him. Amara didn't look away from Royce. I tried to warn him, Sergeant. What the hell? Eli's two eyes were wide with shock. With her free hand, Amara reached into her shirt collar and pulled out a thin chain. Attached was a military ID and a small recording device, both hidden against her dark skin. Major Amara Okonkwo, Military Intelligence, Special Investigations Unit. Her voice was crisp, authoritative. This checkpoint has been under surveillance for 6 weeks. Captain Hendricks, you and your unit are under investigation for corruption, extortion, and abuse of civilian populations. Royce's face went from red to white. You can't. I already have. Everything's been recorded. Transmitted. She looked at Eli. Sergeant Cross, you have a choice. Help me secure this situation, or go down with him. Eli holstered his weapon slowly, his two hands raised peacefully. I'll help. God, I'll help. I've been waiting for someone to stop this. Amara nodded, keeping the gun trained on Royce. Then we need to move fast. Because there's a complication neither of you knows about yet. The alliance. Eli zip-tied Royce's hands behind his back, his two fingers working quickly while Amara kept the captain covered. Royce spat curses, but a sharp look from the major silenced him. What complication? Eli asked, dragging Royce to the corner and securing him to the tent pole. Amara moved to her confiscated backpack, pulling out a compact encrypted radio. Her two hands worked the dials with practiced efficiency, 5 fingers on each hand dancing across the controls. Static crackled, then a voice emerged. Falcon 6, this is Eagle's Nest. Sitrep. Eagle's Nest, Falcon 6. Target secured. But we have a situation. She glanced at Royce. Target was selling intelligence to hostile forces. I've intercepted communications indicating enemy company strength movement. ETA to this position, approximately 4 hours. The radio was silent for a long moment. Falcon 6, extraction team is 12 hours out. Recommend you evade and egress. Negative, Eagle's Nest. Checkpoint has 20 personnel, mostly unaware of treason. I'm not leaving them to be slaughtered. Major, that's not your mission. It is now. Falcon 6 out. She switched off the radio. Eli stared at her, his two eyes reflecting admiration and fear. You're going to defend this place? Against a company? We have maybe a dozen combat-ready soldiers and limited ammunition. Then we'd better get creative. Amara's two eyes met his. You said you've been documenting Royce's activities. Do you have evidence? On my personal drive. Names, dates, photos of the contraband he's been moving. Good. We'll need it. Now, how many of your soldiers are truly loyal to him versus just following orders? Over the next hour, they worked together in the supply tent, occasionally brushing against each other in the confined space. Eli found himself increasingly drawn to her, not just her beauty, but her calm competence, the way her dark skin gleamed with perspiration as she worked, the intelligence burning in her two eyes. Why are you doing this? He asked, helping her inventory weapons. You could escape. Complete your mission. Amara paused, a rifle in her two hands. Because it's right. Because Royce's corruption created this situation, and innocent soldiers will die for his greed. She looked at him directly. And because some people are worth saving, Sergeant. The intensity of her gaze made his breath catch. Eli. Just, call me Eli. Amara. A small smile touched her lips, the first genuine warmth he'd seen from her. They woke the other soldiers, gathered them in the command tent. Amara laid out the situation with military precision, her two legs planted firmly as she addressed the suspicious, hostile faces. Some didn't believe her until she produced her credentials and Eli's evidence of Royce's treason. The reality sank in, their captain had betrayed them. An enemy force was coming. They could run or fight. Most chose to fight. As sunset painted the desert in shades of crimson and gold, Amara transformed the checkpoint into a fortress. She directed soldiers to reinforce positions, set claymore mines on approach routes, establish overlapping fields of fire. Her tactical brilliance became evident. This wasn't her first desperate defense. Eli worked beside her, their partnership natural, efficient. As darkness fell and preparations completed, they found themselves alone in the supply tent, checking ammunition counts. The adrenaline, the proximity, the knowledge that death might come with dawn, it all crystallized in a single moment. Their two eyes met. Eli's two hands reached for her face, tentative, asking permission. Amara answered by kissing him. It was urgent, desperate, real. His two arms pulled her close, feeling the strength in her body, the scars hidden beneath her clothes. Her two hands tangled in his hair, 5 fingers on each hand gripping tightly. They stumbled backward against supply crates, mouths hungry, breaths ragged. Eli's fingers, 5 on each hand, trembling slightly, unbuttoned her shirt, revealing her dark skin, smooth and scarred. He traced a puckered bullet wound on her shoulder. What happened? He whispered against her neck. Crossed the wrong people. Survived. Her two hands pulled his shirt over his head. Started crossing back. They made love on a pile of canvas tarps, surrounded by ammunition crates and weapons. It was fast, passionate, driven by the awareness that this might be their only chance. Her two legs wrapped around him, her two arms holding him close. Their skin, her rich dark brown against his lighter tan, moved together in the dim lantern light. Afterward, lying entwined, Eli traced patterns on her bare skin with his 2 fingers. If we survive this. When, she corrected, kissing his shoulder. When we survive. When we survive, can I see you again? Really see you, not as Major and Sergeant, but just Amara and Eli. She smiled against his chest. I'd like that. An alarm shattered the moment, sharp, urgent. They dressed rapidly, weapons instinct taking over. Outside, a soldier called, "Major." Enemy movement on the ridge. They're early. Amara and Eli exchanged one last look, a promise, a prayer, then ran toward their positions. The battle was coming. The battle. Dawn broke blood-red over the desert as enemy forces attacked. 36 soldiers against Amara's dozen, terrible odds that she transformed through brilliant tactics. Fire. Her voice cut through the chaos. Claymore mines detonated in synchronized fury, shredding the first wave. Enemy soldiers scattered, seeking cover. Amara moved between positions on her two legs like a ghost, directing fire, adjusting defenses. Her two eyes tracked enemy movements with predatory precision. An enemy squad flanked left. She intercepted them personally, her rifle barking controlled bursts. Her two hands worked the weapon fluidly, 5 fingers on each hand moving with mechanical efficiency. 3 enemies fell before they knew she was there. Eli watched her in awe from his position. This wasn't an intelligence officer, this was a warrior born. She fought with savage grace, her dark skin streaked with dust and cordite, her two arms never wavering. "Royce is escaping," someone shouted. The captain had slipped his bonds during the chaos, fleeing into the desert. Amara pursued without hesitation, her two legs eating distance. She tackled him 50 yards out, both tumbling into sand. They fought brutally, his strength against her skill. His two fists swung wildly. She deflected, countered, her two hands striking pressure points with surgical precision. Within seconds, he was on his knees, her pistol pressed to his head. "You'll face trial," she said coldly. "That's justice." Allied helicopters thundered overhead as she dragged Royce back. The enemy retreated. The checkpoint held. Eli lay wounded but alive. She knelt beside him, their two hands clasping. "Find me after," he gasped. She kissed him softly. "Count on it." The reckoning. 3 weeks later, the military tribunal convened in a sterile courthouse far from the desert. Amara sat in her dress uniform, medals gleaming on her chest, her dark skin luminous under fluorescent lights. Her two hands rested calmly on the witness stand as she testified, her two eyes never leaving Royce's face. Captain Hendricks sold classified intelligence to hostile forces, resulting in the deaths of 17 civilians and the compromise of 3 Allied operations. Her voice was steady, factual. His unit systematically extorted local populations, confiscated goods without authorization, and created an environment of terror. The recordings played, damning, undeniable. Royce's face grew ashen as his own words condemned him. Eli testified next, his two arms still bandaged from shrapnel wounds. He described the abuses he'd witnessed, the documentation he'd kept, the courage of the major who'd risked everything to stop it. The verdict came swiftly, Royce received life imprisonment. 8 soldiers faced various sentences for complicity. Those who'd cooperated, including Eli, received honorable discharges with commendations for their defense of the checkpoint. Outside the courthouse, autumn's sun warmed the plaza. Amara found Eli on a bench, civilian clothes hanging loosely on his healing frame. His two legs stretched out, face tilted toward the sky. "So, Major Okonkwo." He smiled as she approached. "What now?" She sat beside him, close enough that their two legs touched. "I have 2 weeks' leave. And a cabin in the mountains. No phones, no missions. Just peace. Is that an invitation?" Her two eyes sparkled. "What do you think, Sergeant?" "Former Sergeant," he corrected, taking her hand, 5 fingers interlacing with 5 fingers perfectly. "Good. I prefer civilians anyway. Less complicated." They drove north for hours, conversation flowing easily now without rank between them. The cabin sat nestled in pine forests, overlooking a crystalline lake. Isolated. Perfect. Inside, Amara built a fire while Eli unpacked supplies. The domesticity felt surreal after weeks of violence and testimony. When she turned from the fireplace, he was watching her with unmistakable hunger. "Come here," he said softly. This time, there was no urgency, no desperation. They undressed slowly, exploring each other with reverence. Eli's two hands traced every scar on her dark skin, the bullet wound, the knife slash, the burn mark. Each one a story she whispered against his lips. She pushed him onto the bed, straddling him, her two legs on either side. The firelight painted her body in amber and shadow, highlighting the strength in her two arms, the curve of her spine. They moved together slowly, savoring every sensation, every touch. Her two hands braced against his chest, 5 fingers on each hand splayed across his heartbeat. His two hands gripped her hips, guiding their rhythm. They made love for hours, alternating between fierce passion and tender exploration, learning each other's bodies like maps to treasure. Afterward, they lay tangled in sheets, sweat cooling on their skin. Through the window, stars blazed across an impossibly clear sky. "Can this work?" Eli asked, his two fingers tracing lazy circles on her shoulder. "You're still military. I'm civilian now. Your life is dangerous, classified, constantly moving." "I know." Amara turned to face him, her two eyes serious. "But I'm tired, Eli. Tired of being alone. Tired of only being the soldier, the operative, the weapon." Her two hands cupped his face. "With you, I remember what it's like to just be. Amara. A woman who wants more than missions and medals." "I want this," he said firmly. "I want you. Whatever complications come with it." She kissed him deeply. "Then we make it work. I'll request a desk assignment, something with regular hours. You finish your degree. We build something real. In that order." He smiled against her lips. "Maybe not exactly that order." She pulled him closer, her two legs wrapping around his waist again. "Maybe we start with this, right now, and figure out the rest as we go." They made love again as moonlight replaced firelight, slower this time, imprinting every moment into memory. 6 months later, Amara unlocked the door to their shared apartment in the city. She'd transferred to a training position, still military, but stable, predictable. Eli was finishing his engineering degree, working part-time at a veterans center. She found him in the kitchen, cooking dinner, humming off-key. He turned as she entered, his two eyes lighting up. "How was your day, Major?" "Boring." "Perfect." She wrapped her two arms around him from behind, resting her chin on his shoulder. "Taught recruits basic hand-to-hand. No one tried to kill me. Absolutely mundane." "Sounds terrible," he teased, turning in her embrace to kiss her properly. "It was wonderful," she corrected, her two hands framing his face. "Because I knew I'd come home to you." They ate dinner on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker to life. Amara felt something she'd rarely experienced in her decade of service: contentment. Peace. The warrior in her would always exist, coiled and ready. But she'd found something worth more than missions. "What are you thinking?" Eli asked, his two fingers interlaced with hers on the table. "That I crossed a checkpoint 6 months ago and my entire life changed. Was it worth it? Exposing Royce, the battle, everything." She looked at him, this good man who'd chosen courage over complicity, who'd fought beside her, who'd somehow seen past the soldier to the woman underneath. "Every moment," she said. "Those soldiers crossed the line with the wrong woman. But you." She smiled. "You crossed the line with exactly the right one." He laughed, pulling her close. "Best mission of my life." "Ours," she corrected, kissing him as the sun set over the city they now called home. Some lines, once crossed, lead to destruction. Others lead to salvation. Amara had walked both paths and finally found where she belonged, not in the shadows of covert operations or the chaos of combat, but here, in the simple miracle of loving and being loved in return. The warrior could rest. The woman could finally live. And that was the greatest victory of all.